Saturday Night Live recap, ShaneGillis. Humors. The base, when I hear about comedian ShaneGillis, it's like when someone talks to me about New England for too long. My eyes glaze over because that is not my business. That is white people's business to sort out amongst yourselves. I entered this episode understanding that I am not Gillis's target audience, and he doesn't need me to be. Being fired from Saturday Night Live in 2019 for those little resurfaced podcast clips seems like it worked out well for Gillis. He's got a fan base, a successful podcast, and a thriving career among people who love using the bald eagle emoji and have alarming browser histories. Lorne Michaels told the Wall Street Journal last October that he was angry when NBC higher-ups decided to fire Gillis, and considering this is Gillis's second hosting stint in 2 years, it seems like Michaels' sentiment still stands. I will say that it is impressive to leave a job unceremoniously and be welcomed back so emphatically. When I quit my job as a fact-checker at this magazine, my boss said, quite literally, "No problem. Clearly Gillis has something I don't, so I tried to go in with an open mind and heart. I watched some podcast clips beforehand, which I found incomprehensible. But perhaps this episode would surprise me. Perhaps it would somehow change my opinion towards the right-wing podcasting community." It did not change my opinion, and I did not really have fun, but it met my expectations, which were low. You know you're down bad when you're viscerally relieved to see Colin Jost. Well, that's not exactly true. I'm happy to stand up to the haters to say that I like Jost. But you get the point. Thematically, it felt like an episode where each sketch feels like one you'd send to someone's dad. For a regular guy who doesn't want to talk about politics. Gillis has been talked about as a guy who has broader appeal across the political spectrum. But to me, it feels like the broadness is pretty narrow to his fan base, which is who this episode catered to in a way that felt limiting. Gillis started his monologue with the assumption that he'd lose the audience. The SNL audience doesn't have anywhere to be, and if you want to get them on your side, you can. There were a couple of pops, including a Joe Biden impression, that worked well. The rest of it felt half-hearted, like a bit about Trump wanting Greenland that sort of just trails off. The sketches played to Gillis' strengths of playing some kind of everyman. A dad, an alcoholic, a few weird, gross guys, etc. And I didn't just come here to be a hater. That's for texts. There are glimpses of how he could have been used positively as a featured player, like in Winery Tour. He plays a hapless boyfriend who can't photograph or pose for Instagram. At one point, his girlfriend, played by Heidi Gardner, coaches him into posing using increasingly goofy directions, and Gillis delivers. When Gillis was having fun, like in Doctor's Office, alongside Emil Joachim, the audience was too. And there were other moments across the show too. I just wonder how much having to write around his whole vibe stunted the possibilities of what could have been a sillier, weirder episode. Overall, it was a pretty rough watch, with the return of the midday news sketch and weekend update as the high point. Tate McRae, who I recently learned is different from Addison Rae, was very good. Here are the highlights.